Chapter 1369. Following that, the alliance ceremony went on smoothly. The powerhouses swore to form an alliance and were given territories. After that, it was time for the banquet. The banquet lasted for a day and a night before the crowd slowly dispersed. In the north of the divine wilderness continent, on a boundless sea, the space cracked open and the space-piercing shuttle appeared. Buzz! The space-piercing shuttle shook and shrunk, revealing two figures. They were Di Xian and the silver-haired elder. Puff! The silver-haired elder spat out a mouthful of blood as soon as he appeared. After the battle with Lu Ming and the journey through the night, the silver-haired elder had suffered serious injuries. However, Di Xian did not even look at the silver-haired elder. His eyes were cold and his face was ferocious. He looked to the south and roared, "That bastard, I'll tear that Lu Ming into pieces." It was fine if he was in the Yuanlu, but he had suffered such a great loss on the divine wilderness continent, an uncivilized island. Not only had he lost several martial emperor's spiritual weapons, but he had also fled. It was a great humiliation. He hated Lu Ming to the core. As for his dead subordinates, Di Xian did not care at all. In his eyes, they were nothing more than insignificant ants. In the Di clan, there were too many ants like this. The silver-haired elder's eyes showed a trace of sadness, but it disappeared in a flash. "Master, what should we do now?" The silver-haired elder asked. "What else can we do?" "Return to the Yuanlu, of course." Di Xian gritted his teeth. "Return to the Yuanlu to find experts to take revenge?" The silver-haired elder asked carefully. "Idiot! Do you know how much it costs to teleport some people from the Yuan continent to this remote and desolate island? The family has already made an exception for me. This time, they won't let me do it again in a short time. However, it won't be for long. Once I've achieved the martial dominator realm and achieved a certain status in the clan, I'll come again. 10 years, at most 10 years, I'll destroy the entire godly desolation continent together with that kid." Di Xian roared with a ferocious face. After a long while, he calmed down and flew back to the Bayou continent with the silver-haired elder. Lu Ming's life had completely calmed down. Every day, other than cultivating by himself, he would be teaching his two disciples. Sometimes, he would also teach his parents, Hua Qi, and the others through discussions. As for his second body, other than cultivating, he would also preach occasionally. His second body had obtained the inheritance of a saint and had broken through to become a ruler. His knowledge of the path of inscription could be said to be the best in the divine wilderness continent. Therefore, every time the second body of inscription refinement opened the altar and preached the Tao, people that cultivated the Tao of inscription would swarm over. Bai Shijin, Du Songjue, and the others did not miss a single time. There were even rulers who went to listen to the lecture. Lu Ming didn't hide anything and imparted all of his cultivation experience to him. At the same time, the population of Dragon Emperor City was increasing, making it more and more prosperous. The entire divine wilderness continent, the entire Dragon Alliance, was filled with vitality. It was flourishing and growing stronger. Even though the number of sovereigns in the divine wilderness continent could be said to be the lowest in history. Aside from the people from the Western Desert and a few from the Xie family, there were less than 20 emperors in the entire Dragon Alliance. However, with this situation, it wouldn't take too long for the number of sovereigns to slowly increase. Now that the Dragon Alliance had unified the world, resources were integrated, and various cultivation holy lands were open to the public. The treatment that those top geniuses could enjoy was many times better than before. In the past, the various overlord forces ruled over a region and cherished their own resources. Their resources were extremely limited. But now, they could choose any resources they wanted. The cultivation speed of the younger generation's geniuses had greatly increased. The sovereigns also imparted their cultivation experiences to them. It was believed that their chances of breaking through to the ruler realm in the future would also increase. A month after the alliance was established, Yan Kuangtu successfully broke through and became a ruler. The number of sovereigns in the Dragon Alliance increased by another. 2 months after the alliance was established, with the help of Lu Ming, Xie Luan finally took a step forward. A large portion of his origin was restored, and his cultivation finally recovered to the third level of the martial emperor realm. He became the strongest person in the Dragon Alliance apart from Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since the alliance ceremony. In the past 3 months, Lu Ming's cultivation had increased steadily. The embryonic form of his domain was growing stronger day by day. Various martial skills were also improving. What was worth mentioning was that Lu Ming had fused 9 drops of 9 dragons' blood essence and absorbed the 9 dragons' cultivation experience. He had finally cultivated the 9th step of the 9 dragon sky-stomping steps to perfection. As for his pure spirit body, he had also cultivated it to 70%. Xiang Yanqing had also been cultivating hard. His improvement was very fast, and he was only 1 step away from the supremacy level. However, Dandan and Bubbles were still asleep and hadn't woken up. At this time, there was less than a year before the 2-year agreement to go to the Dragon God Valley. Back then, what happened to Long Chen and the others? Why did Long Chen disappear and only Underworld Child, Heartless Monk, and the other 2 came back? Now that Underworld Child is dead, only Heartless Monk and Moonless know. It seems that it's time to make a trip to the Western Desert. In a pavilion in a courtyard of the Alliance leader's mansion in Dragon Emperor City, Lu Ming was drinking tea as his thoughts flew. He decided to find out Long Chen's whereabouts. Long Chen was a good person and could be considered a friend of Lu Ming's. Back in the Godly Ruins continent, it was Lu Ming who had implicated him. If Long Chen was killed because of Lu Ming would feel uneasy. Thinking of this, Lu Ming took a step forward and disappeared. The Western Desert had always been the world of Buddhism, and Buddhism ruled this place. Almost everyone in the Western Desert believed in Buddhism. Moreover, the Western Desert had always been mysterious and had never participated in the battles of the Divine Wilderness continent. However, no one dared to underestimate the Western Desert. There was once an emperor who led an army to attack the Western Desert, but in the end, he did not return and did not cause any trouble. Even if the Divine Wilderness continent entered a rare chaos this time, the Western Desert still stayed out of it. Swoosh! At the border of the Western Desert, Lu Ming's figure appeared. Looking into the distance, Lu Ming's figure was like a rainbow as he flew toward the depths of the Western Desert. The vast territory of the Western Desert was filled with countless temples and ancient temples. Lu Ming's target this time was the oldest and most ancient temple in the Western Desert, the Bodhi Temple. It was said that the Heartless Monk and the Moonless Bodhisattva both came from the Bodhi Temple and were in seclusion there. Lu Ming's speed was so fast that it did not take long for him to cross more than half of the Western Desert. So many experts! Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Along the way, Lu Ming discovered many powerful auras. Lu Ming discovered no less than 20 auras of Supremes. In fact, he even discovered 2 auras of Emperors. Lu Ming was still flying in a straight line, but he had already discovered so many experts. It was incredible. Sometimes, there would even be a Supremes in a rundown temple. It was truly shocking. It was said that the Western Desert was second only to the Middle Continent among the 5 major domains. It seemed that the rumors were true. Soon, a temple on a majestic mountain appeared before Lu Ming's eyes. Chapter 1370. As soon as Lu Ming arrived, a Bodhi glow appeared before Lu Ming as a bulky 3-meter-tall monk appeared before Lu Ming. Halt, this is the sacred ground of the Buddhism sect. The burly monk was like a Buddhist Vajra. He extended his hand and blocked Lu Ming. Master, Junior Lu Ming would like to pay a visit to Master Wuliang and Moonless Bodhisattva of your sect. Lu Ming brought his fists together and said politely. Lu Ming. You're the leader of the Dragon Alliance. The bulky monk's eyes widened as his eyes flickered with astonishment. I am. Lu Ming said. So it's Alliance leader Lu, but Wuliang and Moonless are currently in seclusion. I'm afraid it's not convenient for them to meet. The bulky monk said. Still in seclusion? Lu Ming frowned and said, Master, Can you pass the message that Lu Ming is only here to ask a few questions? I'll be leaving after that. Alliance leader Lu, I've already told you, Wuliang and Moonless are currently in seclusion. I'm afraid it's difficult for them to meet. The bulky monk spoke in a domineering tone. Lu Ming's expression darkened slightly. It was only a one-time meeting. Besides, with Lu Ming's current identity, he could be considered the ruler of the godly desolate region, but the monk still insisted on stopping him. There must be something fishy going on behind the scenes. Lu Ming was wondering if he should force his way in. Although the bulky monk possessed a cultivation of the first-layer martial dominator realm, there was no way he could stop Lu Ming. Kong Jian, let Alliance leader Lu in. At that instant, an ancient voice could be heard coming from the Bodhi temple. Following this, a Bodhi glow appeared as a kind-looking old monk appeared beside the bulky monk. A Bodhi glow appeared above the old monk's head. The powerful aura caused Lu Ming's eyes to widen. Third-layer martial dominator realm. This old monk possessed a cultivation of the third-layer martial dominator realm, causing Lu Ming's heart to be filled with astonishment. Apart from Xiao Wan, there was another third-layer martial dominator realm expert in the godly desolate region. The Western Desert really shocked Lu Ming. If such an expert were to participate in the struggle for hegemony in the divine wilderness continent, how could DE even stand a chance? Kong Jian greets Abbot Kong Hai. The burly monk greeted the old monk. As it turned out, this person was the abbot of the Bodhi temple. Amit Ba. Old Na Kong Hai greets Alliance Master Lu. Master Kong Hai bowed and said, Grandmaster is too polite. Lu Ming greets Grandmaster. Lu Ming returned the greeting. Alliance leader Lu, please come in. This old monk knew that Alliance leader Lu would come this morning. I've already informed Wuliang and Weiyue to come out and meet you. Master Kong Hai said. Oh? Lu Ming raised his eyebrows, but he didn't say anything. He entered the Bodhi temple with Kong Hai and Kong Jian, then sat down in an elegant courtyard and waited. Lu Ming, long time no see. I knew you wouldn't die. Not long after, a nondescript Buddhist chant was heard. Monk Wuliang and Moonless Bodhisattva walked over. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. Meanwhile, Kong Hai and Kong Jian had already left, allowing Lu Ming and the others to chat among themselves. Wuliang, what exactly happened at the Godly Ruins continent? The people of the Southern God Palace came to the Divine Wilderness continent and said that I was killed by the geniuses of the Heavenly Gods sect after offending them. Why didn't you say anything? Lu Ming went straight to the point and asked the question that had been bothering him. Sigh, Lu Ming, you can't blame me. Monk Wuliang yelled, it was the experts of the Southern God Palace that sent us back, the Wang clan. When they arrived at the Divine Wilderness continent, they told us not to spread the news. You should know that the Southern God Palace is extremely powerful. They even have a fourth-layer martial dominator realm expert. I didn't dare to disobey them. Besides, that old monk Kong Hai is a coward, so he told us to cultivate in seclusion instead of worrying about the outside world. Monk Wuliang wore an exaggerated expression. He kept referring to Abbot Kong Hai as old monk Kong Hai, how strange. Amit Ba. Moonless Bodhisattva uttered a chant and pretended not to hear it. By the way, Lu Ming, were you being hunted by the Southern God Palace? At that time, I really thought you were dead. Monk Wuliang added. Oh? I'm too lazy to look into it. What about Long Chen? Didn't he come back with you? Where is he? Lu Ming asked. Sigh, Long Chen is most likely dead. He was taken away by the people of the Wang clan. Monk Wuliang let out a sigh. The Wang clan. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he said, do you know why they took Long Chen away? I don't know. Monk Wuliang shook his head. Lu Ming frowned. Was it because he had offended the genius of the Wang clan, Wang Zhen, that the Wang clan was trying to take out their anger on Long Chen? Alright, Lu Ming, that's all I know. You came at the right time. If you were a few days later, you wouldn't be able to see us. Monk Wuliang said. Oh? You're leaving? Lu Ming asked curiously. That's right. In a few days, Wu Yue and I will head to Yuanlu and join the major Buddhist sects there. I'm indeed the darling of the heavens, the reincarnation of a Buddhist emperor. Lu Ming, I'll catch up with you soon. Monk Wuliang laughed out loud, feeling smug. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. It seemed that the Western Desert's waters ran deep. They could even contact the major Buddhist sects in Yuanlu. Then we'll meet in Yuanlu in the future. Lu Ming said. After that, Lu Ming bade farewell and left. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. In the past few days, Lu Ming received news that unknown experts had appeared on the shores of the Divine Wilderness continent. Lu Ming frowned and ordered them to be more vigilant. On the shores of the eastern wilderness of the Divine Wilderness continent, a figure suddenly appeared. A terrifying aura emanated from his body. It was the aura of an emperor. I've finally arrived at the Divine Wilderness continent. That Lu Ming should be on the Divine Wilderness continent. The figure wore a green robe. His eyes were narrow and sharp. At that moment, there was a hint of greed in his eyes. His body swayed and flew toward the depths of the eastern wilderness. Soon, he arrived outside Kowloon City. What a majestic city. There's an emperor here. I can find out about Lu Ming's whereabouts. The green-robed man sneered and rushed into Kowloon City. He appeared in the depths of the city. A vast aura emanated from his body and pressed down on Kowloon City. What's going on? He's so powerful. Emperor. That's an emperor. Which emperor from the Dragon Alliance has arrived? In Kowloon City, many people were suppressed by the aura and almost knelt down. Some of the weaker ones even spat out blood. Who is it? A loud shout came from the depths of Kowloon City. A burly man rushed out. This burly man was Chu Luo. He was ordered to guard Kowloon City. When Chu Luo saw the green-robed man, his eyes narrowed. That was because he did not know him. Currently, all the emperors in the Divine Wilderness continent, except for those from the Western Desert, had joined the Dragon Alliance. Chu Luo was familiar with every one of them. However, he did not know this person. Clearly, he was not an emperor from the Divine Wilderness continent and came from overseas. You're finally out. Let me ask you a question. You'd better answer honestly. Otherwise, you'll suffer. The green-robed man chuckled. What do you want to ask? Chu Luo asked. Have you heard of Lu Ming? Chapter 1371. Alliance Master. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Chu Luo was stunned and asked. Alliance Master? Looks like Lu Ming's status isn't low here. Speak, where's Lu Ming now? Said the green-robed man. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Asked Chu Luo cautiously. Nonsense. Just speak when I tell you to. You really have a lot of nonsense. The green-robed man shouted coldly with impatience, and a powerful aura surged from his body and pressed down towards Chu Luo. Chu Luo's body shook, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. His expression changed violently as he exclaimed, "Second level of the Martial Emperor realm." The green-robed man was actually at the second level of the Martial Emperor realm. Why are you looking for the Alliance Master? Otherwise, don't even think about telling you. Chu Luo roared loudly. Still not speaking? You're courting death. The green-robed man's gaze turned cold as he slapped out with his palm. Chu Luo's figure retreated madly, and layers of defenses appeared before him. Bang! 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 However, Chu Luo's defenses were shattered by the green-robed man's palm strike. Chu Luo spat out large mouthfuls of blood as his body was blasted flying like a cannonball. Let's go! Chu Luo didn't hesitate at all to turn around and flee. Humph! Do you think I won't know just because you fled? The green-robed man shouted coldly and didn't pursue Chu Luo. His figure appeared below Nine Dragon City and grabbed the head of a domain god, and a green mist enveloped the domain god. The domain god let out a shrill and miserable cry, and the others nearby were terrified to the point of trembling. "Speak! Where's Lu Ming?" asked the green-robed man coldly. "The Alliance Master is at Dragon Emperor City." "Dragon Emperor City?" that person cried out loudly. "Dragon Emperor City? Give me the map." The green-robed man shouted coldly. That person didn't dare disobey, and he withdrew a map from his storage ring and passed it to the green-robed man. The green-robed man flung the domain god flying, and then he opened the map to take a look. He laughed coldly, "Hee hee. Lu Ming, I've finally found you. I didn't waste my time rushing over here from the green-rich continent." With a cold light flashing across his eyes, the man in green strode towards Dragon Emperor City. If Lu Ming was here, he would know that the Green Abundance continent was a continent in the southern part of the Divine Ruins continent group. It was right next to the Divine Wilderness continent. As soon as the green-robed man left, the domain enlightened spirit god that was captured by the green-robed man gasped for breath while cold sweat flowed from his body. Right when he thought he'd escaped calamity, a ball of green mist suddenly emerged from his body and enveloped him. A cry of agony was heard once again. After a short while, when the mist dispersed, only a skeleton remained of the domain enlightened spirit god. Hiss hiss hiss, the people nearby all sucked in a breath of cold air. Similar scenes played out in the southern underworld and the northern plains. The rulers of both places were attacked. In Dragon Emperor City, Lu Ming had also received the news. An expert who fought to a draw with the continent has appeared in the southern underworld. Lu Ming frowned. All parties were under attack. The ones who appeared were all martial emperors with formidable cultivations. The weakest among them was a second-layer martial dominator realm expert. Only Nanming was confirmed to be an emperor from the Zhanping continent. The Zhanping continent. According to the news, it's very likely that they're from a few different continents. Strange. Lu Ming frowned. They came from a few different continents and suddenly came to the Divine Wilderness continent. Moreover, they all had the same goal, to find him, Lu Ming. Lu Ming was very puzzled. These powerful figures from different continents had all come to the Divine Wilderness continent to look for him. What exactly was the matter? At this moment, Lu Ming received another piece of news. Someone attacked the Demon God Valley in the northern plains. The Demon God Valley was where Xiao Wan was. Xiao Wan showed his strength and severely injured the enemy. Moreover, he brought that person to the Dragon Emperor City through the trans-territory teleportation formation. Lu Ming was delighted. It was a good opportunity to interrogate him. Lu Ming took a step forward and tore the space apart. In the next moment, he appeared at the trans-territory teleportation formation and saw Xiao Wan. There was also a skinny old man lying on the ground with a pale face. His aura was weak and his face was pale. "I'm from the Bayou continent. You better let me go. Otherwise, you will die a horrible death." The skinny old man yelled and threatened Xiao Wan. The old man possessed a cultivation of the second-layer martial dominator realm, but he was no match against Xiao Wan. Bang! Lu Ming arrived and stomped his foot on the old man's face, causing the old man's face to slam into the ground. "Nonsense, tell me, why did you come to the Divine Wilderness continent to find me?" Lu Ming asked coldly. "So you're Lu Ming?" The skinny old man's eyes flickered as he stared at Lu Ming with a greedy look. "Tell me." Lu Ming exerted force with his foot. The old man struggled wildly, but it was useless as his cultivation was sealed. "Lu Ming, you better give me the Chaos Badge and let me go. Otherwise, not only will you die, the entire Divine Wilderness continent will be buried with you." The skinny old man yelled. "Chaos Badge? You're here for the Chaos Badge? Tell me, what's going on?" Lu Ming yelled. These people were here for the Chaos Badge, which greatly exceeded Lu Ming's expectations, causing him to be even more curious. "Let me go at once," the skinny old man yelled. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming stomped his feet on the old man's legs, causing them to explode and turn into dust. The old man inhaled deeply as his eyes popped out, before he let out a heart-wrenching cry. For a martial emperor, the explosion of his legs was nothing serious, as his spiritual body would be able to recover in a short period of time. However, the heart-wrenching pain was real. Speak. Speak honestly. Tell me the whole story. Otherwise, my next kick will be your dantian. Lu Ming said coldly. The skinny old man's heart tightened. If Lu Ming were to stomp on his dantian, his spiritual god would be in danger. In the end, the skinny old man had no choice but to tell everything he knew. It turned out that a few months ago, there was a shocking piece of news from the Divine Ruins continent. It was said that the Southern Divine Palace had captured a genius and that genius had a Chaos Badge. With the Chaos Badge, one could freely enter and exit the Divine Ruins and obtain the treasures inside. When the news came out, it caused a huge uproar. Later on, there was another piece of news that the genius with the Chaos Badge came from the Divine Wilderness continent. There was another person in the Divine Wilderness continent who also had the Chaos Badge, and his name was Lu Ming. The news spread like a whirlwind across the Divine Ruins continent and even to other continents. The ruins of deity were too mysterious. There were countless treasures hidden inside. There were several divine ruins in the Divine Ruins continent, but it was very dangerous inside, especially the core. Even martial emperors would die if they entered. But now, with the Chaos Badge, one could freely enter the Divine Ruins and obtain the treasures inside. This caused the Divine Ruins continent to riot. One of the Chaos Badges was in the hands of the Southern Divine Palace, so the others could only fight for the other one. The one in the hands of Lu Ming. Chapter 1372. Lu Ming speculated that the prodigy controlled by the Southern Divine Palace was Long Chen. Firstly, Long Chen had fallen into the hands of the Wang family and happened to have the Chaos Origin token. Secondly, the Chaos Origin token wasn't that easy to obtain. Lu Ming estimated that in the entire Divine Ruins continent group, only he and Long Chen had the Chaos Origin token. Previously, he had learned from 2E of the Chaos Palace that the Chaos Origin token depended on one's potential. In the War of Providence, some people's cultivation might far exceed Lu Ming's cultivation, but they might not be able to obtain the Chaos Origin token. Only those who were determined to have great potential could obtain the Chaos Origin token. Through these 2 points, Lu Ming speculated that the prodigy was definitely Long Chen. And the Wang family had used some methods, such as soul searching, to find out from Long Chen that Lu Ming also had a Chaos Origin token. But there was one thing that Lu Ming couldn't figure out. For example, if the Wang family or the other experts of the Southern Divine Palace knew from Long Chen that Lu Ming also had a Chaos Origin token, shouldn't they secretly send experts to capture Lu Ming? How could they spread the news so that all the continents in the Divine Ruins continent group knew about it? This didn't make sense. Boom! At this moment, a powerful aura came crashing down from the sky. The Dragon Emperor city was enveloped by a powerful pressure. Boom! Boom! As soon as this pressure rose, several other pressures erupted and filled the sky above the Dragon Emperor city. At this moment, everyone in the Dragon Emperor city felt like they were being crushed by Mount Tai and a disaster was imminent. Lu Ming, get out here! Lu Ming, get out here! A few loud roars like thunder exploded in the sky above the Dragon Emperor city, causing many people's eardrums to vibrate and they almost vomited blood. Good timing. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he stepped out and stomped on the skinny old man's dantian. Boom! The berserk power directly pierced through the skinny old man's dantian and scattered the old man's spiritual deity. The old man's eyes bulged as he roared, You didn't keep your word, Lu Ming sneered, I didn't say I wouldn't kill you. Also, you killed your way to the Divine Wilderness continent to steal my primordial chaos token. Do you think I won't kill you? How naive. With the eruption of power, the skinny old man was torn apart. Then, Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared in the sky. Whoosh! Whoosh! With the sound of something breaking through the air, 5 figures appeared beside Lu Ming. Other than Xiao Wan, there were 4 other rulers. In Dragon Emperor City, besides Lu Ming, there were 4 other emperors guarding it. The moment Lu Ming appeared in the sky, he had seen some figures standing around Dragon Emperor City. "I am Lu Ming." Lu Ming's voice came from afar. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a flicker, the figures around Dragon Emperor City appeared around Lu Ming and the others, surrounding Lu Ming and the others. "Lu Ming, I am the Sacred Sky Emperor of the Zhoning Continent. Hand over your primordial chaos token." A burly man with golden hair stared at Lu Ming with a wild aura. "The primordial chaos token is mine. I am the ruler of Shuayu from the fluttering snow continent." A beautiful woman in white stared coldly at Lu Ming. These 2 people were both peak second-layer martial emperors. They were very powerful. Those who dared to cross the vast distance and come to the divine wilderness continent to participate in this battle were the top experts of their respective continents. The weakest of them was a second-layer martial emperor. Even the first-layer martial emperors did not dare to come. They knew that even if they obtained the primordial chaos token, they would not be able to enjoy it. Fluttering snow continent, Zhoning continent, get lost. A burly man in armor shouted coldly. His aura was extremely shocking. He was a third-layer martial emperor. Fighting against the continents, the ruler of Shuayu and the Sacred Sky Emperor wore stern looks. This third-layer martial emperor was from the fighting against the continent. The fighting against the continent was ranked in the top 10 among the continents of the Divine Ruins. Apart from these 3, there were 3 others with a cultivation of the second-layer martial emperor. One of them was the old man in a green robe, who surrounded Lu Ming and his crew while glaring at them. "Lu Ming, give me your primordial chaos token and I'll spare your life." The emperor of the fighting against the continent stared at Lu Ming coldly. "Hee, it seems like you don't know anything about the primordial chaos token. The primordial chaos token was acquired during the Battle of Luck. It has already merged with my body. Even if you have it, you won't be able to use it." Lu Ming said with a smile. "Won't be able to use it? That's easy. I just need to cripple you and bring you along. I can still enter the Divine Ruins and obtain the treasures inside." The emperor of the fighting against the continent said with a hideous grin. "Is that so? Why are you so confident? Have you ever thought that you'll lose your life here?" Lu Ming remained calm, but behind his calm expression, there was a cold murderous intent. "Ha ha ha, lose my life here? What kind of expert can you find in the divine wilderness? What can you do to me?" The emperor of the fighting against the continent burst into laughter. "Oh? If that's the case, die!" Lu Ming shouted and suddenly attacked. The chaotic intent realm lingered around him as the dragon vein sword appeared in his hand and slashed at the emperor of the fighting against the continent. The terrifying power caused the emperor of the fighting against the continent to turn pale. "Block it!" The emperor of the fighting against the continent took out a halberd and slashed it down with all his might. He was a third-layer martial emperor. Even an ordinary second-layer martial emperor would be killed by his full-powered attack. However, when Lu Ming's dragon vein sword landed on the halberd vibrated violently and exploded with a bang. The emperor of the fighting against the continent trembled violently and spat out blood as he retreated. "How is this possible?" The emperor of the fighting against the continent yelled in disbelief. He was a third-layer martial emperor, while Lu Ming was only a 9 Heavens Supreme. Although it was unbelievable that he had reached the 9 Heavens Supreme realm at such a young age, he was still a 9 Heavens Supreme. How could his strength be so powerful that he could severely injure the emperor of the fighting against the continent? "Kill!" Lu Ming stepped out. His combat sword cut through the void and slashed toward the emperor of the continent who was fighting the same battle. The emperor of the fighting against the continent tried to dodge the attack, but he suddenly discovered that his surroundings were surrounded by dozens of formations that were designed to trap the enemy. Puff! The dragon vein sword slashed the emperor of the fighting against the continent in half. This, on the side, the Sacred Sky Dominator, the Snowdrift Dominator, and the others were dumbfounded. Their eyes were wide open. Everything happened too quickly. Lu Ming had just made 2 moves and a LV3 Martial Emperor expert, whom they were extremely wary of, was killed in just 1 move. He thought he was dreaming. Kill! Lu Ming swung his sword and slashed a second-layer Martial Emperor into pieces. Run, run! The rest of the cultivators fled in all directions in terror. Kill! Xie Luan made his move and drew out his demonic saber. A second-layer Martial Emperor expert was slashed in half by the demonic saber. On the other hand, Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared behind the Snowdrift Emperor, slashing at him with his battle sword. The Snowdrift Emperor tried his best to defend himself, but it was useless. The slash shattered everything in its path. Chapter 1373. 5 sovereigns had come, including a LV3 Martial Royal Realm expert, but they had all been killed in an instant. Only the Sacred Sky Emperor was left. The Sacred Sky Emperor felt a chill run down his spine. In his opinion, even if there were experts in the Divine Wilderness continent, a LV2 Martial Royal Realm expert would be the limit. With his peak LV2 Martial Royal Realm cultivation, he could roam the Divine Wilderness unhindered. But now, he realized that the Divine Wilderness continent was a tiger's den. It was a hell on earth. Spare me! The Sacred Sky Emperor begged for mercy. I've said that since you're here to steal my Chaos Origin token, you should be prepared to be killed. Do you really think that the Divine Wilderness continent is your backyard and that I, Lu Ming, can be easily bullied by you? Lu Ming's cold voice sounded as he appeared behind the Sacred Sky Emperor and slashed down with the Dragon Vein sword. The Sacred Sky Emperor was filled with regret and hatred. He tried his best to resist, but the result could not be changed. Puff! The Sacred Sky Emperor was killed in the air. The 5 sovereigns who had come to attack were all dead. Lu Ming, give the order to gather all the sovereigns to guard the Dragon Emperor city. I'm afraid there will be more experts coming. Xie Luan suggested. No. Lu Ming waved his hand and said, passively defending will only be endless. Now, we need to take the initiative to attack and scare them. Spread the news to all parts of the Divine Wilderness continent. Tell the experts of the other continents not to resist. Tell them that I, Lu Ming, am at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. You want to be at the Fallen Emperor Mountain? Xie Luan raised his eyebrows and said. That's right. Fall Emperor Mountain, kill all the sovereigns. Lu Ming said. Do you need our help? Xie Luan said. He could not help but admire Lu Ming's decisiveness. No need. Senior Xie, you'll guard the Dragon Emperor city. Lu Ming said. After that, Lu Ming stepped out and headed toward the Fallen Emperor Mountain. The Fallen Emperor Mountain was not far from the Dragon Emperor city. It was only 10 million miles away and was a giant peak that rose into the sky. Legend had it that an sovereign had fallen here a long time ago, which was why it was called the Fallen Emperor Mountain. A short while later, Lu Ming appeared at the top of the Fallen Emperor Mountain. He sat down cross-legged and waited quietly. The Dragon Emperor city also spread the news to every corner of the Divine Wilderness continent, saying that Lu Ming was at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. As time passed, more and more experts from other continents came to the Divine Wilderness. Lu Ming is at the Fallen Emperor Mountain. Let's go to the Fallen Emperor Mountain. I want to be the first to obtain the Primordial Chaos token. One figure after another headed for the Fallen Emperor Mountain. At the border of the northern plains, the sky rumbled. A huge cross-sea flying ship broke through the wind and waves, appearing on the coastline. Whoosh! 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 3 figures appeared in the cross-sea spaceship. Each of them had a majestic aura. Among the 3 figures, 2 were at the peak of the second-layer Martial Dominator realm, while the one in the middle was even more terrifying, having reached the peak of the third-layer Martial Dominator realm. This person had long green hair and looked to be in his 40s. In the distance, a beam of light flashed as a middle-aged man appeared before the 3 figures. He bowed to the middle-aged man and said, "Second master, I've found out that Lu Ming is cultivating in seclusion at the fallen Emperor Mountain." "Oh? Got it." The green-haired middle-aged man nodded and sneered. This Lu Ming is really audacious. He even dared to kill the young master of the sea-suppressing marshal's residence. This time, Big Brother sent me here to kill Lu Ming and avenge my two nephews. At the same time, I can seize the primordial chaos token. I'll do my best. The others on the side immediately said. All right, let's go. The middle-aged man took the lead and left. At the fallen Emperor Mountain, Lu Ming sat with his legs crossed and casually scanned his surroundings. Around the fallen Emperor Mountain, 7 or 8 experts had appeared. They were all experts from different continents, and each of them was a second-layer martial dominator realm expert. This force was extremely shocking. However, these people had yet to make their move, not because they were afraid of Lu Ming, but because they were wary of one another. The primordial chaos token is mine, I was the first to arrive. Ridiculous, you're the first to arrive, so it's yours. Bullshit. Are you trying to oppose the fallen Emperor continent? Voices could be heard as the powerful martial emperors unleashed their auras and stood in the air, facing one another. 2 more experts from the fallen Emperor continent had arrived, one third-layer martial dominator realm and the other peak second-layer martial dominator realm. As expected of one of the top 10 continents in the Godly Ruins continent. As the experts faced one another, none of them dared to make their move. Lu Ming wore a faint smile, but he did not break the balance. Now was not the time to make his move. It would not be too late for him to make his move when more people arrived. As time gradually passed, more martial emperors arrived. Behind them, there were 16 martial emperors. Even the White Feather continent, which was ranked 4th in the Godly Ruins continent group, had sent a few of them. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, 4 figures flew toward them from the distance. The one leading them was the blue-haired middle-aged man. The southern sacred palace of the Godly Ruins continent is here for the season-suppressing marshal's residence. Those who have no business here, back off. Someone beside the blue-haired middle-aged man yelled. The others were startled. What? Even the southern sacred palace is here. Doesn't the Southern Sacred Palace have a primordial chaos token? Why are they involved? The others blurted out with stern looks. The strength of the Godly Ruins continent was too overwhelming. It had surpassed the strength of the other continents. However, it was impossible for them to give up just like that. The season-suppressing marshal's residents shouldn't try to oppress us. There are so many of us here, we're not afraid of you. That's right, if the season-suppressing marshal were here, we might be a little intimidated, but there's no way we're backing off. The others blurted out. Those who had arrived were the peak experts of the other continents. Even though the blue-haired middle-aged man's cultivation was strong, he was only a peak third-layer martial dominator realm cultivator. His presence was not enough to scare these experts. Humph, how reckless. Are you trying to oppose the season-suppressing marshal's residence and the Southern Sacred Palace? The eyes of the blue-haired middle-aged man flickered coldly as he snapped. However, the others sneered and none of them backed off. Most of the experts from the southern continents of the Godly Ruins continent had gathered here. With so many experts gathered here, why would they be afraid of the season-suppressing marshal's residence? At most, they would hide after obtaining the primordial chaos token. What could the experts of the Southern Sacred Palace do to them? The blue-haired middle-aged man's face darkened. Everyone present was an expert. There were more than 5 third-layer martial dominators. Although none of them were at the peak of the third-layer martial dominator realm, the blue-haired middle-aged man was still wary of them. Finally, it's about time. At this moment, Lu Ming said calmly on the fallen Emperor Mountain. The emperors immediately looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming, how dare you kill the people of the season-suppressing marshal's residence? Hand over the primordial chaos token and come with me to the season-suppressing marshal's residence to receive your punishment. The blue-haired middle-aged man yelled. Hi Tian and hi you, those 2 pieces of trash. If you want to take revenge, then do it. Chapter 1374. You're courting death. The blue-haired middle-aged man shouted with a gloomy face. Everyone, as you can see, Lu Ming has a feud with the Sea Conqueror's mansion. My elder brother's 2 sons died in Lu Ming's hands. The Sea Conqueror's mansion is bent on getting Lu Ming. The blue-haired middle-aged man scanned the crowd. He was worried about the experts from other continents. As for Lu Ming, he did not care about him at all. I have no objection if you want Lu Ming. Just leave the Chaos Origin token behind. That's right. Take him away and leave the Chaos Origin token behind. The other sovereigns said. Humph. The blue-haired middle-aged man snorted. He wanted to kill Lu Ming, but his main target was the Chaos Origin token. Are you done talking nonsense? Lu Ming stood up and a cold killing intent rose from his body. He said, do you know why this place is called the Fallen Emperor Mountain? The crowd looked at Lu Ming again. That's because some sovereigns have fallen here. That's why I chose this place to be your burial ground. Lu Ming's cold voice spread in all directions. What? Arrogant. You want to kill us? What a joke. Don't attack. Let me kill him first. Hearing Lu Ming's words, the other sovereigns were enraged. Kill. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly roared and attacked. He shot up into the sky and rushed toward the sovereigns who were at LV2 Martial Royal Realm. Roar roar roar, dragon roars were heard as the 9 dragon forces burst out. At the same time, the 3rd bloodline appeared and a force flowed into Lu Ming's body. Then, the chaotic domain covered his body. Clang! He slashed out with the dragon vein sword. At this moment, Lu Ming had used all his strength. No one expected that Lu Ming would dare to make a move when he was besieged by more than 20 emperors. Moreover, these sovereigns were all at LV2 Martial Royal Realm and above. How terrifying was this force? Therefore, when Lu Ming made his move, they were subconsciously taken aback. Puff! 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 With a sweep of the dragon vein sword, the 3 emperors of LV2 Martial Royal Realm were cut in half. The sword chi burst out and crushed their spiritual deities. In an instant, 3 people were killed. When Lu Ming attacked, the space between his eyebrows glowed. His second body stepped out and waved his hand. 5 phoenix feather flying swords shot out rapidly, and the cries of phoenixes shook the sky. 5 cries of agony were heard as 5 second-layer martial dominators were penetrated by the phoenix feather flying swords, shattering their spiritual spirits. Lu Ming suddenly launched an attack. His main body and second body attacked at the same time, instantly killing 8 powerhouses. Only then did the others react. Damn it, how dare you launch a surprise attack? How can he be so strong? Go, crush him. Angry roars rang out one after another. Some people felt their bodies go cold. If Lu Ming had attacked them just now, what would have happened? In an instant, numerous attacks were launched toward the main body and the second body. Whoosh! Lu Ming's main body moved slightly. Like a flickering light and passing shadow, he disappeared from the spot. Puff! Then, a second-layer martial dominator was cut in half by Lu Ming's sword. The air-frozen bead, combined with the wind origin skill, is really fast. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Lu Ming controlled the air-frozen bead, and a green energy appeared in his body. Then, he used the wind origin skill. Lu Ming's speed was extremely fast. Even the emperors could not catch up with his speed. As for the second body, he took a step forward, and the void was filled with formations. He used the formations to move his body and dodge the attacks. At the same time, he controlled the 5 phoenix feather flying swords and killed another second-layer martial dominator. Then, he waved his hand, and the million formation illustration appeared. Countless large formations appeared and attacked the emperors. The million formation illustration was most suitable for group battles. Countless large formations, all kinds of offensive, defensive, and trapping enemies, caused the many rulers to be in a flurry. With the second body's current strength, even a third-layer martial dominator would be afraid of the million formation illustration. Whoosh! 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 Lu Ming's main body used the wind origin skill, and his body flashed rapidly. Puff! Puff! Blood splattered everywhere. One by one, the emperors were killed. Second Master, help! A second-layer martial dominator from the Sea Conqueror's mansion shouted. However, the green-haired middle-aged man was focused on by the second body. Countless large formations poured down on him, and 3 of the 5 phoenix feather flying swords stabbed at him. He could barely protect himself, and he did not have the strength to save others. Puff! The emperors of the Sea Conqueror's mansion were easily killed by Lu Ming. Given Lu Ming's current combat ability, with the coordination of his main body and secondary body, killing a second-level martial emperor was as easy as chopping vegetables. Furthermore, most of these people didn't have emperor spirit weapons. In the blink of an eye, there were only 5 martial dominators left. 5 LV3 martial emperor realm experts. The other second-layer martial dominators were all killed. Fall back, fall back. This man is a monster, an Azura, a demon. A few third-layer martial dominators yelled. They were scared out of their wits. Lu Ming was unbelievably strong. There were more than 20 of them. If they joined forces, even a 4th-layer martial dominator would have to retreat. However, almost all of them were killed by Lu Ming. This did not mean that Lu Ming's strength was stronger than a 4th-layer martial dominator. It was that the combination of Lu Ming's main body and his second body was too perfect, especially in a group battle. The second body activated the million formations illustration to trap, disturb, and attack the enemies with a wide range of attacks. No matter how many enemies there were, they could be trapped. Besides, the second body had a powerful attack. Coupled with the coordinated attacks of the main body, the other party's advantage in numbers had yet to be unleashed. Lu Ming's thunderous attacks had already scattered them into pieces. Buzz! At this moment, Lu Ming performed the bloodline merge and turned into the spirit-suppressing steel, suppressing a third-layer martial dominator. Bang! The third-layer martial dominator spat out mouthfuls of blood as half of his body exploded. Following this, the dragon vein sword slashed forward and killed the man. Following this, the spirit-suppressing steel came crashing down once again. The others wanted to escape, but what awaited them was a boundless grand formation. If they wanted to break through the grand formation, they would have to spend some time. But that time was fatal. Bang! The spirit-suppressing steel was like a death steel, covered in a chaotic domain. Ordinary third-layer martial dominators could not resist it at all. They would be severely injured if not killed. Damn it, I'm going to run away, run away. Seeing the other experts being killed by Lu Ming one after another, the blue-haired middle-aged man panicked and tried to escape. However, the second body was staring at him. There was no way he could escape. Whoosh! A formation appeared on the second body's body. A sword intent was fired from the tip of his finger, which almost penetrated the blue-haired middle-aged man's forehead, causing him to break out in cold sweat. Ah ah ah! Cries of agony could be heard, before they fell silent. The other third-layer martial dominators were all killed by Lu Ming. Chapter 1375. The green-haired middle-aged man's heart turned cold from head to toe. Never in his wildest dreams did he think that such a situation would occur when he was only here to kill a young junior. Now, it's your turn. Go down and accompany your 2 nephews. The suppressing hell steel flew towards the green-haired middle-aged man as Lu Ming's cold voice resounded. Lu Ming, I am the second brother of the sea-suppressing general. If you dare to kill me, the entire divine wilderness continent will be buried with me. The green-haired middle-aged man roared and threatened. I have already killed Hai Tian and Hai Yu. You won't make a difference. Lu Ming sneered. You. Let me tell you, I am not only a member of the sea-suppressing general's residence, I am also an elder of the Southern Divine Palace. If you kill me, you will be going against the Southern Divine Palace." The green-haired middle-aged man continued to roar. Seeing that the sea-suppressing general's residence was not going to work, he brought up the Southern Divine Palace. "Southern Divine Palace? I will make a trip there sooner or later." Lu Ming's voice was still as cold as a knife. The green-haired middle-aged man panicked. Lu Ming was not threatened at all. He was extremely daring. He had never met such a person before. He was at a loss. Swoosh! As he panicked, a phoenix feather flying sword flew past his neck, leaving behind a trail of blood and almost chopping off his head. The green-haired middle-aged man shuddered. Lu Ming, I beg you to spare me. As long as you let me go, I will go back and plead for you in front of my big brother." The green-haired middle-aged man started to beg for mercy. "Ridiculous!" Lu Ming sneered. "Let me go. I beg you. As long as you let me go, I will do anything for you and be your slave." The green-haired middle-aged man became more and more afraid. In the end, he did not care about his face and begged. He did not look like a high and mighty emperor at all. Emperors were also humans. They were just people who had great power. They also had emotions and were afraid of death. Especially emperors, they were more afraid of death than ordinary people. They had great power and could destroy the heavens and earth. They had a long lifespan and could live freely in the world. Therefore, they were even more afraid of death. Clearly, the blue-haired middle-aged man was such a person. When he was stronger than others, he was high and mighty, looking down on others as ants. However, when he was faced with the threat of death, he would often behave even worse than an ordinary person. "Kill!" Lu Ming was unmoved. He spoke coldly as the prison-suppressing steel pressed down. At the same time, his second body attacked as well. There was no suspense in the outcome. Although the blue-haired middle-aged man's cultivation had reached the peak third-layer martial dominator realm, how could he possibly stand a chance against the combined strength of Lu Ming's main body and his second body? Not long after, the blue-haired middle-aged man was killed by Lu Ming with unwillingness. At this point, over 20 second-layer martial dominator realm experts had been slain by Lu Ming. Plus the 5 people who were killed by Lu Ming in Dragon Emperor City, these 20-odd powerhouses were the top powerhouses of all the continents in the south of the continent of God's ruins. In this battle, the top powerhouses of these continents had suffered great losses, resulting in a period of emptiness. The power structure of these continents would change tremendously, resulting in a great battle between the factions. That being said, Lu Ming was too lazy to care about any of this. With a wave of his hand, over 20 storage rings were collected by Lu Ming. In addition to that, the corpses of the martial dominators were stored in the mountain and river pattern. These were all martial dominators. Both their blood and essence were priceless treasures. They would be of great help if given to Xiao Wan and the others. After putting the storage rings away, Lu Ming headed for the Dragon Emperor City. Outside the Dragon Emperor City, more than 10 figures were waiting anxiously. Xia Nianqing, Xiao Wan, Xia Zhouyang, and the others. They were all the authorities of the Dragon Alliance. Although they were aware of Lu Ming's outstanding strength and his ability to create miracles, they could not help but feel worried as they were facing experts from other continents. Lu Ming. All of a sudden, Xia Nianqing's eyes lit up as he looked forward. A rainbow light flashed, and Lu Ming's figure appeared. "Lu Ming, are you all right?" Xia Nianqing hurriedly went forward, his face full of worry. During this period of time, Xia Nianqing had been in seclusion, trying to break through to the supreme stage. However, when he heard the news, he immediately came out of seclusion. "I'm fine." Lu Ming smiled. "Alliance leader, how are the powerhouses of the other continents?" Xiao Wan asked. The others also looked at Lu Ming curiously. Lu Ming smiled and waved his hand. The corpses of the martial dominators, whether complete or incomplete, all appeared in the air, emitting shocking fluctuations. Even after death, the fluctuations emitted by the martial dominators were still shocking. This is. Xie Luan, Xia Zhouyang, and the other martial dominators were all petrified. These martial dominators had only died recently. They could clearly sense their cultivations from the corpses. They were all second-layer martial dominators and above. There were 5 third-layer martial dominators. So many experts were dead. It was obvious that they had been killed by Lu Ming. They could feel their hearts shuddering as they inhaled deeply. At the same time, Lu Ming was becoming more and more mysterious in their hearts. Keep these corpses. I'll leave it to you to decide how to use them. Lu Ming said. Xie Luan and the others used a storage ring to store the corpses of the martial dominators. By the way, I'll keep the ones that are useful to me. As for those that aren't, I'll leave them to you and store them in the vault. You'll be rewarded according to your contributions in the future. Lu Ming said. Xie Luan and the others nodded. Following this, they excused themselves and left. Only Lu Ming and Xie Nianqing were left in the sky. Lu Ming, what are you going to do next? Xie Nianqing asked all of a sudden. Xiao Qing, I can't hide it from you. Lu Ming let out a smile as he held Xie Nianqing's hand and gazed deep into the Dragon Emperor city. Even though the southern continents of the Godly Ruins continent suffered great losses, it won't end here. There are still experts from the 4 great celestial palaces of the Divine Ruins, as well as experts from the western, northern, and eastern continents of the Divine Ruins. These experts will also rush over. If I continue to stay in the Divine Wilderness, it will be a disaster for the Divine Wilderness. Lu Ming said in a solemn tone. Currently, the strongest cultivator was only a peak 3rd-layer martial dominator. If a 4th-layer martial dominator were to show up, how was Lu Ming going to deal with them? A 4th-layer martial dominator was significantly stronger than a 3rd-layer martial dominator. Even though it was not too difficult for Lu Ming to kill an ordinary peak 3rd-layer martial dominator with the help of his 2 bodies, he was still no match against a 4th-layer martial dominator. If a 4th-layer martial dominator were to show up at the Godly Desolation continent, the Dragon Alliance, the Dragon Emperor city, or even the entire Godly Desolation continent would be in trouble. That was not what Lu Ming wanted to see. Lu Ming, are you planning to leave the Godly Desolation continent? To the Godly Ruins continent? Chapter 1376. That's right. As long as I go to the Godly Ruins continent and show myself there, everyone will gather there. Lu Ming said. After all, those people's target was Lu Ming and the Chaos Origin token, not the Godly Ruins continent. As long as Lu Ming showed himself in the Godly Ruins continent, those who wanted the Chaos Origin token would not come to the Godly Ruins continent. This way, the Dragon Alliance and Lu Ming's friends and family would be safe. That was Lu Ming's plan. This plan could be said to be very bold and dangerous. Lu Ming, I'll go with you. Xie Nianqing held Lu Ming's hand tightly as he stared into Lu Ming's eyes. All right. Lu Ming nodded after thinking for a while. Xie Nianqing's smile was peerless. There was no time to lose. The next day, Lu Ming gathered the higher-ups of the Dragon Alliance and announced his plan. At first, Xie Luan, Xia Zhouyang and the others were against it. However, since Lu Ming had made up his mind, there was nothing they could do. After the meeting, Lu Ming and Xie Luan sat opposite each other in the backyard of the Dragon Alliance. Senior Xia, I don't know when Lu Ming will be back. I'll leave the Dragon Alliance to you for the time being. Lu Ming said. Why do you say that? Xie Luan was stunned. There's less than a year left before the date with the Divine Dragon Valley. I'm afraid it'll take a year to get to the Godly Ruins continent. When the messenger of the Divine Dragon Valley arrives, we'll have to leave for the Yuanlu. Lu Ming explained. Xie Luan fell silent. After a while, he said, Don't worry, Alliance leader. As long as I'm around, I'll ensure the safety of the Dragon Alliance and your family. Thank you, Senior. Lu Ming smiled and said, I'll never forget what I promised you. After I've gained a foothold in the Yuanlu, I'll recommend you to join the Yuanlu sect. Thank you. Xie Luan solemnly raised his glass to Lu Ming. After that, Lu Ming went to have dinner with Lu Yuntian and Li Ping. The next day, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing officially set off for the Godly Ruins continent. In northern plains, in the boundless ocean, Lu Ming looked at the distant divine wilderness continent with a complicated look in his eyes. Who knew how long it would take for him to return? Xian Yanqing stood quietly beside Lu Ming and did not speak. Xiao Qing, let's go. After a long while, Lu Ming smiled, took Xian Yanqing's small hand, turned around, and left. This time, Lu Ming only brought along Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming left Tu Qian in the Lu family to guard the Lu family. After flying for a while, Xian Yanqing entered the mountains and rivers to cultivate, while Lu Ming began to travel at full speed. He had to reach the Godly Ruins continent as soon as possible. Lu Ming tore the space with all his strength and traveled at an astonishing speed. Traveling at full speed consumed a lot of energy. Even with Lu Ming's current True Yuan strength, he could not last for long. However, Lu Ming had a second body. When the main body's True Yuan ran out, the main body would enter the mountain and river diagram to recover while the second body would continue to travel. Lu Ming's current speed was slightly faster than that of an ordinary third-level martial emperor. He traveled day and night without stopping. Within a few days, the Divine Ruins continent was already in sight. Previously, riding on Lei Shi Supreme, it took him several months. But now, traveling at full speed, his speed was dozens of times faster than Lei Shi Supreme. Godly Ruins continent, I'm back. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as he rushed towards the Godly Ruins continent. After arriving at the Godly Ruins continent, Lu Ming found a place to devour origin stones and recover his cultivation to the peak. See suppressing Marshal's residence, I'll start with you. Lu Ming murmured as he tore the space apart and left. It was easy to let the Godly Ruins continent know that Lu Ming had come to the Godly Ruins continent in a short period of time. Lu Ming was the first to set his eyes on the sea-suppressing Marshal's residence. Not long after, Lu Ming arrived at the sea-suppressing Marshal's residence. The sea-suppressing Marshal's residence was located at the center of a huge ancient city. It was surrounded by palaces. Bang! Lu Ming appeared above the ancient city and unleashed his aura without concealing it. A terrifying pressure encapsulated the entire ancient city. What's going on? Provocation, this is provocation. How powerful, is he a Nine Heavens Supreme? How could a Nine Heavens Supreme have such a powerful aura? The entire ancient city was immersed in an uproar. Who's there? How dare you provoke the sea-suppressing Marshal's residence, die! How bold! At the center of the ancient city, terrifying auras burst out from the endless palaces. They were all auras of martial emperors. Lu Ming scanned the place with his divine sense and discovered more than 20 auras of martial emperors. Lu Ming exclaimed in his heart. The Godly Ruins continent was indeed powerful. This was only the sea-suppressing Marshal's residence under the Southern God Palace, but there were already more than 20 martial emperors here. The Godly Desolation continent was nothing compared to it. Whoosh! 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 Following this, several figures sprang into the sky and surrounded Lu Ming. There were 9 figures in total, 9 martial emperors. Among them, 2 were second-layer martial emperors, while the other 7 were first-layer martial emperors. The sea-suppressing Marshal's residence would not send out all of its experts just because of a single person. Where's Hai Ping Tian? Ask him to come out and die. Lu Ming yelled. Hai Ping Tian was the name of the sea-suppressing Marshal. How bold, die! How dare you provoke the Marshal, kill him! The martial emperors surrounding Lu Ming yelled. A few of them attacked Lu Ming. Boom! 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 Lu Ming threw out 3 punches in a row, followed by 3 cries of agony. 3 first-layer martial emperors were blasted into pieces by Lu Ming. The other martial emperors were shocked and glared at Lu Ming. They did not expect Lu Ming to be so daring. He actually dared to make a move in the residence of the Sea Conqueror. Moreover, he was so ruthless that he killed 3 emperors in one go. They were sovereigns. Even in the southern god palace, they were high and mighty figures. But now, 3 of them had died in an instant. Kill! Lu Ming cast the wind essence skill and charged toward the remaining 5 sovereigns in a flash. Lu Ming's fist force destroyed all the martial emperors, regardless of whether they were second-layer or first-layer martial emperors. After 5 punches, the remaining 5 martial emperors were all killed. In the ancient city, the martial artists who witnessed this gasped in astonishment. Where did this fiend come from? He is so young, but his combat strength is unbelievably strong. He can kill martial emperors as if they were dogs. Boom! Boom! At that moment, the entire ancient city shook. A few earth-shattering auras burst out from the center of the palace. Then, a few figures appeared in front of Lu Ming. Their cold killing intent almost froze the world. The marshal is here! Someone exclaimed. The leader had a head of green hair, which was similar to the green-haired middle-aged man who had attacked the divine region. He was Hai Pengtian, the sea-suppressing marshal. Hai Pengtian's aura was earth-shattering, as if he was the ruler of the world. 4th-layer martial emperor. Chapter 1377. Hai Pengtian's LV4 martial royal realm aura was released and Lu Ming felt a great pressure. Behind Hai Pengtian were 2 old men with LV3 martial royal realm cultivation. Whoosh! Whoosh! At that moment, a few figures rushed out from below and stood behind Hai Pengtian. There were more than 10 of them and they were all martial emperors. Those who were not martial emperors did not dare to come up. Their auras alone were enough to suffocate martial emperors. Who are you? How dare you come to the Sea Conqueror's residence? Who sent you? Hai Pengtian stared coldly at Lu Ming and did not attack immediately. In the Godly Ruins mainland, not many forces would dare to come here. The Sea Conqueror's residence belonged to the Southern Divine Palace. In the Godly Ruins mainland, only the other 3 divine palaces would dare to do so. Hence, Hai Pengtian was a little hesitant and decided to ask about it first. Me? Didn't you send your second brother to catch me? I am Lu Ming. The corners of Lu Ming's lips curled slightly as he spoke. His clear voice spread throughout the entire ancient city and rang in everyone's ears. What? He is Lu Ming. The most powerful person among the younger generation, Lu Ming, who has the chaotic essence token. He came to the Godly Ruins mainland. The ancient city was in an uproar when they heard this. You are Lu Ming. Hai Pengtian's eyes narrowed and a cold murderous intent flashed in them. That's right. He is Lu Ming. I saw him when the Yuanlu sect was selecting disciples. A voice came out from the ancient city. Apparently, someone had recognized Lu Ming. After receiving confirmation, Hai Pengtian's eyes lit up and he said, My second brother has failed. Lu Ming, I am impressed by your courage. You came to the Godly Ruins and dared to kill in the Sea Conqueror's residence. Today, you will not leave. Hai Pengtian's aura became stronger and stronger and he was about to attack. Commander, there is no need for you to deal with a kid. I will take him down and avenge the 2 martial emperors. ALV3 martial royal realm elder stepped out from behind Hai Pengtian and bowed. All right. Cripple his cultivation first, but don't kill him. Hai Pengtian instructed. Yes, Marshal, don't worry. The 3rd-layer martial emperor realm elder nodded and walked towards Lu Ming. His aura locked onto Lu Ming. This Lu Ming, the second master, went to the divine desolate continent to find him, but he actually hid in the divine ruins continent. However, he is also stupid, to actually come to the marshal's residence to vent his anger. He probably suffered a lot at the hands of the second master. That's fine, it should be my credit. The thought crossed the 3rd-layer martial dominator realm old man's mind as his face wore a ferocious expression. Whoosh! An iron rod appeared in his hand, and he swung it at Lu Ming. Perfect, kill them one by one. Lu Ming's eyes flashed with a cold light. If Hai Pengtian attacked him, it would be troublesome. Now that this old man had volunteered himself, it gave Lu Ming an opportunity. Boom! Lu Ming stepped forward and punched out. Lu Ming's fist collided heavily with the metal rod. All the energy in Lu Ming's body suddenly erupted. The third-layer martial dominator realm old man's expression changed greatly. His eyes were filled with disbelief, as if he had never thought that Lu Ming's strength would be so terrifying. Then, his body staggered backward. Die! Lu Ming executed the wind origin technique, and his body instantly appeared in front of the old man and threw out a punch. The old man gathered all his strength on the rod and struck at Lu Ming. However, at that moment, Lu Ming's glabella glowed. Lu Ming's second body stepped forward and waved his hand. The phoenix feather flying swords whizzed out and attacked the old man. It was too sudden, and the old man was caught off guard. The old man was fully focused on Lu Ming. He had never thought that another Lu Ming would appear from Lu Ming's glabella. It was too late for him to dodge. Puff puff puff, the 5 phoenix feather flying swords penetrated the old man's vital points, killing him instantly. Die! After killing the old man, Lu Ming did not stop. He controlled the air-frozen bead, and a stream of green energy flowed into Lu Ming's body. Then, he executed the wind origin technique, and his speed was extremely fast. Lu Ming attacked the other emperors. The dragon-veined sword appeared and slashed at them. 2 first-layer martial dominators were killed by Lu Ming with a single slash. Everything happened too quickly. Only then did Hai Ping Tian come to his senses. Most importantly, all of this was beyond his expectations. Lu Ming's aura was clearly that of a supreme being. A third-layer martial dominator was killed by a supreme being in an instant. By the time he came to his senses, Lu Ming had already killed 2 more people. You're courting death. Hai Ping Tian was furious. He roared and threw a punch at Lu Ming. Hai Ping Tian threw out this punch furiously, and its power was astonishing. Whoosh! His second body waved his hand and the million formation illustration appeared. Dozens of defensive formations appeared in an instant to stop Hai Ping Tian. However, bang! 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 A series of explosions sounded. These formations collapsed under the force of Hai Ping Tian's palm. The strength of a 4th-layer martial dominator was too strong. The million formation illustration was a martial dominator spiritual weapon. The formations in it would become more powerful as the second body's cultivation increased. With the second body's current strength, these formations would be very useful against a 3rd-layer martial dominator. However, they all exploded under Hai Ping Tian's palm. The second body's expression changed slightly. He did not want to make a mistake, but he did not want to make a mistake. The spirit fire between his eyebrows lit up and more formations appeared in the million formation illustration. They were all defensive and trapping types. His goal was to stop Hai Ping Tian for a while. At the same time, Lu Ming's main body used the wind origin skill to kill the other emperors. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming slashed with the dragon-veined sword. No matter if it was a 1st-layer martial dominator or a 2nd-layer martial dominator, they were all killed with a single slash. In the blink of an eye, several more people died under Lu Ming's sword. Lu Ming's speed was too fast. These people did not even have time to escape. Damn it! Hai Ping Tian roared. A pair of golden wings appeared on his back, like the wings of a rock. Of course, these were not real wings, but a martial dominator spiritual weapon. Whoosh! Whoosh! The pair of golden wings swept past like 2 heavenly swords. The formations activated by the million formation illustration were constantly collapsing. Hai Ping Tian quickly attacked the second body. The second body took a few steps forward. Inscription formations appeared in the void to cooperate with the million formation illustration. In the end, the second body even used inscription talisman scrolls. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of inscription talisman scrolls flew out and various kinds of energy poured toward Hai Ping Tian. For a moment, Hai Ping Tian could not break through the second body's defense. As for the main body, it continued its slaughter. Puff! The dragon vein sword slashed out and killed 2 more people. In the blink of an eye, there was only one emperor left in the void. A third-layer martial dominator. The third-layer martial dominator was scared out of his wits and did not dare to resist. He hid behind Hai Ping Tian and escaped death. Chapter 1378. In the ancient city, everyone who witnessed this scene was dumbfounded. The sea-suppressing marshal's residence was in charge of a region, and its reputation was known for its dominance. When had it ever been so miserable? There were more than 20 emperors, and all of them were killed. Even a colossus like the Southern God Palace would feel the pinch. Hai Pingtian's eyes turned red. Those were his subordinates and they were killed just like that. He knew that he was finished. His position as the sea conqueror had come to an end. "Brat, I'm going to cut you into pieces." Hai Pingtian roared. The pair of wings on his back emitted a sharp light. With a sweep of the light, the array set up by the second body was destroyed. Whoosh! He charged towards Lu Ming with extreme speed. "Haha, Hai Pingtian, I'm not going to play with you anymore. Let's call it a day." Lu Ming laughed. The second body took a step forward and disappeared into the forehead of the main body. Lu Ming executed the wind origin technique and sped away. "Stay here." Hai Pingtian stared at Lu Ming and unleashed his cultivation to the extreme. A pair of wings flapped wildly and destroyed the array in the sky. He then turned into a ray of light and chased after Lu Ming. "Haha, Hai Pingtian, I forgot to tell you something. Your second brother has also been killed by me." Lu Ming laughed. The energy of the air-frozen bead entered his body. Lu Ming's speed reached the extreme. In a few moments, he had left Hai Pingtian behind. What? Hai Pingtian felt his chest tighten and he almost spat out blood. He gritted his teeth and controlled his wings to chase after Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming had the help of the air-frozen bead and his speed was faster than Hai Pingtian. The distance between the two of them increased as they flew further and further. In less than an hour, Hai Pingtian could no longer see Lu Ming's shadow. "Lu Ming, I will definitely catch you." Hai Pingtian let out an angry roar and reluctantly stopped. A few days later, the news of Lu Ming coming to the continent of Divine Ruins and killing more than 20 rulers from the sea-suppressing marshal's residence spread like a whirlwind throughout the continent of Divine Ruins and even to other continents. For a moment, thousands of waves were stirred up. Right now, countless experts were looking for Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming was extremely daring and had taken the initiative to come to the Godly Ruins continent. Moreover, he was extremely high-profile. As soon as he arrived at the continent of Divine Ruins, he even killed his way to the sea-suppressing marshal's residence and killed more than 20 rulers before retreating calmly. This shocked many people. Many people began to re-evaluate Lu Ming's combat prowess. Some of the weaker emperors began to retreat, but those who were stronger than martial emperors did not give up. In an instant, terrifying experts gathered in the southern region of the Southern Divine Palace in an attempt to capture Lu Ming. Most of these experts were from the Eastern, Northern, and Western Divine Palaces. Whenever Lu Ming appeared somewhere, a large number of experts would rush over. Among them, Hai Pingtian was the most proactive. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. During this month, Lu Ming would occasionally appear and then disappear secretly. His motive was obvious. He wanted to tell the outside world that he, Lu Ming, was in the continent of Divine Ruins. This way, the experts would not go to the Divine Wilderness continent to look for him. 10 people were sitting in a meeting hall of the Southern Divine Palace. These 10 people were the clan leaders of the 10 great clans of the Southern Divine Palace. They were also the 10 people with the highest status in the Southern Divine Palace. The 10 of them had gathered to discuss Lu Ming's matter. "Everyone, what should the Southern Divine Palace do about Lu Ming's matter?" One of them asked. "Of course we have to send powerful figures to capture Lu Ming. He still has a primordial chaos token with him." A rather handsome middle-aged man said. This person wore a milky white robe and had a scholarly aura. This person was the clan leader of the Wang clan, one of the 10 great clans. He was Wang Zhen's father, Wang Sheng. That's right, I agree with Brother Wang's suggestion. Send experts to capture Lu Ming. As long as we don't kill him, it's not impossible to destroy his cultivation. Beside Wang Sheng, a person said coldly. This person was the newly promoted clan leader of the Mu clan. The previous clan leader of the Mu clan had joined forces with young Master Lin of the Celestial God sect to hunt down Lu Ming. They chased him into the core of the divine ruins and were killed by the headless true dragon rider. Therefore, this person was newly promoted. I don't think it's appropriate. At this moment, another voice sounded. Wang Sheng's gaze turned cold as he looked at the person and said, Ji Feng, what do you mean? Why is it inappropriate? I know that your daughter, Ji Hongchen, has some friendship with Lu Ming. Do you want to help him? Ji Feng, the clan leader of the Ji clan, Ji Hongchen's father. Ridiculous. Ji Feng glanced at Wang Sheng contemptuously and said, now that Long Chen is in the hands of our South Divine Palace, the other 3 divine palaces are already jealous. If we capture Lu Ming, what will the other 3 divine palaces do? Will they join forces to attack my Southern God Palace? At that time, how will my Southern God Palace resist? His words caused the hall to fall silent. After a while, another person said, that's right, I think Brother Ji's words make sense. We won't intervene in Lu Ming's matter for the time being. Lu Ming killed more than 20 sovereigns from the sea, suppressing Marshall's residence. Are we just going to let it go? The clan leader of the Mu clan was unwilling. Lu Ming doesn't need us to do anything. If he falls into the hands of the other 3 divine palaces, he will definitely suffer a fate worse than death. Someone said. That's right, we just need to protect Long Chen. Moreover, 1 origin token is enough to enter the divine ruins. Indeed, let them fight for Lu Ming. Others also spoke. Wang Sheng and the clan leader of the Mu clan had no choice but to compromise. In the southern part of the divine ruins, in a wild mountain. This place was extremely hidden and filled with demonic qi. Unless it was an expert who cultivated the demonic path, very few people would come here. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing appeared here. Little Qing, during this period, you should cultivate here. Lu Ming said. Lu Ming, what are you trying to do? Don't even think about leaving me alone. Xian Yanqing pouted. Lu Ming smiled bitterly and said, Little Qing, don't worry, I'll be fine. After a while, I'll come and see you. Seeing that Xian Yanqing was still staring at him with wide eyes, Lu Ming continued, moreover, I have a main body and a second body. My main body and second body will act separately. Nothing will happen. Are you going to the divine palaces to inquire about Long Chen's whereabouts? Xian Yanqing was intelligent and immediately guessed Lu Ming's thoughts. Lu Ming nodded and said, that's right, I plan to let the second body sneak into the divine palaces while the main body is outside to attract the attention of others. This was Lu Ming's plan. With the main body outside, he would attract the attention of those experts while the second body sneaked into the divine palaces and waited for an opportunity to rescue Long Chen. This operation was dangerous. Although he had the mountain river diagram and could bring Xian Yanqing along, Lu Ming could not guarantee that he would not be in danger. Chapter 1379. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing's eyes turned misty as she clenched her fists tightly. She knew that with her current combat strength, she wouldn't be able to help Lu Ming even if she followed Lu Ming. Instead, she would only distract Lu Ming. At this moment, she hated that her cultivation was too low and she couldn't share the burden with Lu Ming. She gritted her teeth. She had to work hard and keep up with Lu Ming's pace. In the future, she would be able to help Lu Ming. Alright, I'll cultivate here. You must be careful. Xian Yanqing said in the end. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Lu Ming stroked Xian Yanqing's soft black hair and gently tapped Xian Yanqing's red lips. Then, he drifted away. Looking at the direction where Lu Ming left, Xian Yanqing swore to herself that she would never become a burden to Lu Ming again. First, I'll break through to the sovereign realm. Then, I'll break through to the sovereign realm. Xian Yanqing's eyes flashed with determination. She turned around and walked into the mountain that was filled with dense demonic qi. After Lu Ming left Xian Yanqing, he traveled thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. Half a day later, he had flown a great distance. At this moment, his second body stepped out from between his eyebrows and appeared in front of Lu Ming. Then, the second body's body started to change. Inscriptions appeared on his body and his aura started to change. After a while, the second body changed into a new set of clothes and became a completely different person. After disguising himself, the second body tore through the void and headed toward South Divine Palace. As for the main body, he found a place to cultivate in peace. His plan was simple. Just like what Xian Yanqing had said, the second body would sneak into South Divine Palace to gather information while the main body would cultivate outside. He would only appear occasionally to attract the attention of others. Currently, the main body was cultivating 3 types of skills. First, of course, was the embryonic form of domain. When the embryonic form of a domain was just condensed, it was very small. It needed to be constantly nurtured before it could slowly mature. When the embryonic form of a domain reached a limit, one could begin to break through to become a ruler. During this time, Lu Ming didn't stop nurturing his domain. He had made great progress, but he was still a distance away from the limit. The second thing to cultivate was the pure spirit body. Now, the pure spiritual body had reached the peak of 70% and would soon reach 80%. The third was to cultivate 5 types of concept martial skills. The 5 types of martial skills were all at the 5th level, but they were very close to the 6th level. Once he broke through to the 6th level, he would be able to cultivate the chaotic concept martial skill, the chaotic flipping sky seal. What Lu Ming was cultivating now should be called a primal chaos domain martial technique. The primal chaos flipping sky seal was very special. If it was cultivated in the state of mind, it would become a martial technique of the state of mind. Now that Lu Ming had comprehended the embryonic form of a domain, if he cultivated it now and combined it with the domain, it would become a domain martial technique with astonishing power. Lu Ming was looking forward to it. The main body cultivated quietly while the second body rushed to the Southern Divine Palace. Soon, the second body arrived at the Southern Divine Palace. After a few months, Lu Ming came to the Southern Divine Palace again. The last time he came, it was to participate in the selection of the Yuan Le Great Marshal's disciple. In the end, he was chased and escaped from the Southern Divine Palace. Lu Ming's thoughts were in a whirl as he walked toward the Southern Divine Palace. The Southern Divine Palace is recruiting inscribers. Not long after entering the Southern Divine Palace, Lu Ming heard this news. Recruiting inscribers? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. After asking around, he finally found out why. The Southern Divine Palace seemed to be guarding something. They were recruiting inscribers to inscribe large arrays and guard the large arrays to guard something. As for what it was exactly, there were different opinions and all kinds of guesses. Could it be that the Southern Divine Palace is guarding Longchen? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. The Chaos Origin token could allow one to enter the ruins of God safely. Everyone wanted it, and the other 3 divine palaces were also eyeing it. The Southern Divine Palace controlled Longchen, which was equivalent to controlling a Chaos Origin token. Naturally, they had to guard it strictly for fear that it would be taken away by the other 3 divine palaces. Therefore, it was reasonable for them to recruit inscribers and strengthen the guard. Whether it is or not, I'll go and take a look. Lu Ming's eyes flickered as he walked toward the recruitment site. After arriving at the recruitment site, Lu Ming found many people, all of whom were inscribers. The rewards given by the Southern Divine Palace this time were extremely generous, and it attracted many inscribers to sign up. However, many of them had depressed expressions. After asking around, Lu Ming knew why these people were depressed. It was because the inscribers recruited by the Southern Divine Palace were at least at the 8th level. An 8th level inscriber was equivalent to a spirit god realm martial artist. To become an inscriber, one's talent was very high. Therefore, there were relatively few people who cultivated the Tao of inscribing in this world. There were naturally far fewer inscribers than spirit god realm martial artists. Those depressed people had not reached the 8th level. Lu Ming walked forward and arrived at a counter. We're recruiting inscribers at the 8th level and above. Are you an 8th level inscriber? An old man in charge of recruitment looked at Lu Ming with a trace of disdain in his eyes. After Lu Ming changed his appearance was ordinary, but he was very young. How could he be an 8th level inscriber at such an age? The old man didn't really believe it. The Tao of inscribing was even more difficult to cultivate than the martial Tao. This old man was an exalt rank inscriber, and he'd spent a few hundred years to break through to the 8th level. But how old was Lu Ming? I'm an 8th level inscriber. Lu Ming smiled and didn't mind. Oh? You're an 8th level inscriber? Don't waste my time. Show me your spirit flame, said the old man. Lu Ming nodded, and the space between his brows emitted a silver glow. Powerful spirit energy suffused the area and drew the gazes of everyone. What a pure spirit energy! What a pure spirit flame! The old man in charge of recruitment gasped and looked at Lu Ming in shock. He felt that Lu Ming's spirit flame was extremely pure. If the spirit flame of an ordinary person was an ordinary person, then Lu Ming's spirit flame was an emperor. Yes, the old man felt that his spirit flame seemed to be under great pressure. Is this enough? Lu Ming muttered and put away his spirit flame. He used some method to conceal the color of his spirit flame, making it look like a silver spirit flame. Moreover, Lu Ming tried his best to suppress it and only revealed a little. The color could be changed and the quantity could be suppressed, but the essence of his spirit flame couldn't be changed. He was an emperor, and he had inherited the mantle of a heavenly profound saint. Every step was perfect, and his spirit flame was naturally pure and condensed to the extreme. It was far from what an ordinary person could compare to. Yes, it turns out that little brother is a genius in the Tao of inscribing. I misjudged you just now, haha. The old man smiled awkwardly and registered Lu Ming's information. After that, he gave Lu Ming a jade token. Lu Ming held the jade token and waited at the side. A few hours later, the recruitment was over. A total of 7 8th level inscribers were recruited. Follow me to the place you are guarding. As for the reward, it will be paid every month. Southern Divine Palace will not miss a single origin stone. Chapter 1380. Deep inside the Southern God Palace stood a magnificent mountain that covered a vast area. The old man led them to the outskirts of the mountain. So many inscribers, such a huge formation. Upon arriving, Lu Ming scanned the surroundings and discovered that there were at least 100 inscribers around the mountain. Each of them was an 8th grade inscriber. The outskirts of the mountain were covered by a huge formation. Alright, this is where you will be guarding. There is a large formation here, and each of you will be a part of this large formation. You will need to constantly inject your mental strength to maintain the operation of the large formation. How is it? Simple, right? The old man said. The crowd nodded their heads. It was indeed simple, as they only needed to insert their spiritual energy to maintain the formation. However, I have to warn you that this is a forbidden area of the Southern God Palace. You should stay at the outskirts and don't wander around, especially deep inside the mountain. If you are discovered by the experts of the Southern God Palace, no one will be able to save you. The recruitment elder changed his tone and warned everyone. The others were startled and nodded their heads. However, Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He had a strong feeling that Long Chen was most likely imprisoned here. They were only in charge of the outskirts of the mountain. It was impossible for outsiders to be responsible for the inner parts of the mountain. The old man gave them a few more reminders and told them the areas they were responsible for, before he left. Lu Ming sat on a boulder with his legs crossed and carefully observed the surroundings with his spiritual energy. There were many experts around the mountain, thus Lu Ming did not dare to act recklessly. However, since Lu Ming had ignited 2 spirit lamps, and his control of his spiritual energy had reached the perfection realm, even a third-layer martial dominator realm cultivator would not be able to detect his spiritual energy. Unless the person was a 4th-layer martial dominator realm expert. However, 4th-layer martial dominators were considered peak experts even in the Godly Ruins continent, thus there were not many of them. As his spiritual energy spread further, the outskirts of the mountain were soon covered by Lu Ming's spiritual energy. The outskirts of the mountain were protected by a huge formation with the functions of sensing, attacking, and defending. Once someone intruded into the formation, it would immediately alert the others, allowing them to attack at the same time. However, Lu Ming soon learned all the secrets of this grand formation. This formation was huge and required so many 8th-level inscriptionists to control it at the same time. Its power was shocking, but it also had many flaws. Lu Ming could casually find dozens of them. Of course, this was in Lu Ming's opinion. To other 8th-level inscriptionists, they would only feel that this grand formation was profound, grand, and unbelievably complicated. In the depths of the mountain, Lu Ming didn't use his psychic power to cover the area. He was afraid that there would be experts guarding the depths of the mountain. Soon, night fell. At this moment, Lu Ming moved. A figure that looked exactly like Lu Ming appeared where he had been standing. This figure had been created by Lu Ming's array formation, and his figure was heading towards the depths of the mountain. To Lu Ming, the outer array was like a flat road. It did not pose any obstruction. After passing through the array, Lu Ming arrived at the depths of the mountain. At this point, Lu Ming stopped. He raised his eyes and looked into the depths of the mountain. In his eyes, there seemed to be array formations rotating. What a wonderful array formation! Soon, everything in the depths of the mountain appeared before Lu Ming's eyes. At the bottom of the mountain, there was a cave. Clearly, there was another world in the mountain. And on the road leading to this cave, there was a grand formation inscribed. This kind of grand formation was extremely mysterious. It's actually the Chi Meridian Chain Grand Formation. After looking at it for a while, Lu Ming frowned. He felt that it was a little tricky. The Chi Meridian Chain Grand Formation was a pure sensing grand formation. It had no offensive or defensive power. It only had sensing ability. As long as others walked into the Chi Meridian Chain Grand Formation, the Grand Formation would send out an alarm. Of course, Lu Ming could easily break an ordinary sensing Grand Formation. However, the Chi Meridian Chain Grand Formation in front of him was difficult for even Lu Ming to break. Lu Ming could see that there were a total of 10 Grand Formations in front of him. They were interlocked, and each of these 10 Grand Formations was locked onto a kind of aura. 10 Grand Formations meant that there were 10 kinds of auras, which were also the auras of 10 people. If one wanted to break this kind of Grand Formation, they would not be able to sense it if they walked in. The only way was to use the auras of these 10 people to refine a token to break the formation. Only then could they quietly walk in. Otherwise, no matter how strong the formation was, if one walked in, the formation would sense it and send out an alarm. Obviously, if Long Chen was imprisoned in this mountain, as long as the alarm was sent out, the others in the mountain would move Long Chen away. Even if they forced their way in, they would not be able to save Long Chen. If one wanted to quietly enter the mountain, they had to break the Chi Meridian Chain Grand Formation. But how to break it? The key was that Lu Ming did not know whose auras this was. How could he get the auras of these 10 people? Lu Ming took a closer look before he retreated and returned to his original position. Southern Divine Palace really values the Chaos Yuan token. With such a tight defense, it will not be easy to save Long Chen. Lu Ming thought in his heart. If I want to break this Chi Meridian Chain Grand Formation and refine a token, I must have the auras of those 10 people. But which 10 people are they? I heard that Southern Divine Palace is dominated by the 10 great families. Could it be that the auras of those 10 people are the patriarchs of the 10 great families? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. This was the most likely possibility. But there was no guarantee. Lu Ming planned to find an opportunity to secretly investigate. For the next 7 days, Lu Ming thought about this plan, but to no avail. On the night of the 8th day, Lu Ming's expression suddenly changed. He saw a figure flickering in the mountain. It was extremely fast and there was no movement at all. Not even a shadow could be seen. Those 8th-level inscriptionists did not notice it. If not for Lu Ming's strong cultivation, it would have been difficult to discover it. This figure seemed to be very familiar with the outer array. It shuttled through the array and headed towards the inner part of the mountain. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Then he moved and followed the figure into the mountain. After passing through the array, the figure stopped. This figure was wrapped in a black robe. Her appearance could not be seen clearly, but her figure was clearly a woman. Long Chen, I know that Southern Divine Palace has gone too far by treating you like this. Unfortunately, there is nothing I can do. The figure sighed softly. Her voice was very soft, but Lu Ming still heard it. This is Ji Hongchen. Lu Ming's eyes moved. This voice was clearly Ji Hongchen's voice. Lu Ming could not remember it wrongly. Ji Hongchen did not stay for long. He turned and left. Lu Ming followed behind Ji Hongchen. Should I ask Ji Hongchen for help? Lu Ming had many thoughts in his mind. Although Lu Ming and Ji Hongchen were not very close, Lu Ming still approved of Ji Hongchen's character. And from the looks of it, Ji Hongchen seemed to want to help Long Chen, but there was nothing he could do. Lu Ming pondered and followed Ji Hongchen out of the mountain. They went to other areas of Southern Divine Palace. Chapter 1381. Ji Hongchen scanned her surroundings and released her spiritual awareness. She seemed to have discovered that someone was following her. What a strong spiritual awareness. Is this a woman's sixth sense? Lu Ming laughed in his heart. Ji Hongchen didn't discover him. Perhaps it was her innate spiritual awareness that made her stop scolding him because she felt that someone was following her. However, Ji Hongchen didn't discover anyone when she scanned with her spiritual awareness. That's strange. Did I sense wrongly? Ji Hongchen muttered. She thought that she was hallucinating. Just as she was about to move forward, her pupils suddenly shrank and a trace of shock appeared in her eyes. That was because a young man had appeared in front of her without her noticing. He was looking at her with a faint smile. She was horrified and instinctively retreated. Who are you? Were you following me just now? Ji Hongchen scolded. Since Lu Ming was in disguise, Ji Hongchen naturally couldn't recognize Lu Ming. Miss Ji, how have you been? Do you still remember me? Lu Ming said. At the same time, his body began to transform into Lu Ming's original appearance. After some thought, Lu Ming decided to give it his all and come out to meet Ji Hongchen. Lu Ming indeed needed help. He knew that Ji Hongchen was one of the top 10 families in the Southern Divine Palace. She was the daughter of the Ji family's patriarch. If Ji Hongchen could help him, it would be much more convenient. Lu Ming, it's you. Ji Hongchen exclaimed softly after seeing Lu Ming's true appearance. She found it hard to believe. Now, all the experts in the world were looking for Lu Ming and wanted to capture him. However, Lu Ming actually came to the Southern Divine Palace. Who would have thought? I'm honored that Miss Ji still remembers me. Lu Ming smiled. Ji Hongchen removed the black mask on her head, revealing her beautiful face. She sized up Lu Ming and said, Lu Ming, you're really daring. You actually came to the Southern Divine Palace and even dared to appear in front of me. Aren't you afraid that I'll get someone to take you down? I believe that Miss Ji isn't that kind of person. Lu Ming smiled. Ripples appeared in Ji Hongchen's eyes as a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Then, he rolled his eyes and said, Lu Ming, there must be something you want from me, right? That's right. Lu Ming needs Miss Ji's help with something. Lu Ming's expression turned solemn as he cupped his fists and said, Oh? Tell me, I may not be able to help you. Ji Hongchen said. Miss Ji, is Long Chen imprisoned in that mountain? Lu Ming asked. That's right. Long Chen is imprisoned inside. Lu Ming, you want to save Long Chen, right? I advise you to give up. You won't be able to save him. The defense is too tight. Ji Hongchen sighed. Although the meridian chain formation is profound, it's not impossible to break. Lu Ming said. You know about the Qi meridian chain array? Ji Hongchen was shocked. Then, he said, since you know about the Qi meridian chain array, you should know how difficult it is to enter it. The auras of the 10 people in the Qi meridian chain array are the patriarchs of the 10 great clans of the Southern God Palace, right? Lu Ming continued to ask. That's right. Ji Hongchen did not hide anything and nodded. Therefore, Lu Ming has something that I need Miss Ji's help with. Lu Ming said. Don't tell me you want me to help you obtain the auras of the patriarchs of the 10 great clans? Ji Hongchen's beautiful eyes widened. That's right. With Miss Ji's identity, it shouldn't be too difficult. Lu Ming nodded and said. Aura. Once a person came into contact with something, they would leave their aura behind. For example, clothes that were worn, bowls and chopsticks that were used, or even human hair would leave their aura behind. As long as he could obtain these, it would be enough. The patriarchs of the 10 great clans of the Southern God Palace were all 4th-layer martial dominator realm experts. Ordinary people would not be able to obtain their auras, but Ji Hongchen was different. Her father was a patriarch of a clan. With her identity, it was possible for her to obtain the auras of the 10 great clans. Lu Ming, although I think it's unfair for the Southern God Palace to treat Long Chen and you this way, it's not easy to save Long Chen. Even if you have the auras of the 10 great clans, can you refine a formation-breaking badge? The method of refining a formation-breaking badge is top secret. Even I won't be able to obtain it. Ji Hongchen said. Don't worry, Miss Ji. As long as I have the auras of the 10 great clans, I'll be able to refine a formation-breaking badge. Lu Ming said confidently. Really? Ji Hongchen found it hard to believe. Could it be that apart from having a great martial skill talent, Lu Ming was also a powerful inscription master? From what she knew, even if he knew how to refine a formation-breaking badge, he would not be able to do it without the cultivation of a 9th-grade inscription master. Of course it's true. As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling golden spiritual fire danced between Lu Ming's eyebrows. Ji Hongchen's beautiful eyes suddenly widened. Her mouth was slightly agape, and she was in disbelief. Lu Ming is really a 9th-grade inscription master. Does this mean that Lu Ming didn't use his full strength when the Yuanlu Great Sect was selecting their disciples? He was able to suppress everyone with his martial skill alone, and his path of inscription had reached the level of an emperor. What a monster! Ji Hongchen cried in her heart. Miss Ji, Lu Ming retracted his spiritual fire and called out to her a few times. Ji Hongchen finally recovered from her shock. Her beautiful eyes blinked as she stared at Lu Ming. Her stare made Lu Ming's hair stand on end. What a monster! Ji Hongchen muttered in the end, which made Lu Ming roll his eyes. All right, I promise you. I'll help you get the auras of the 10 great clans. Ji Hongchen nodded after thinking for a while. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He said, Miss Ji, Lu Ming has another question. Logically speaking, Long Chen and I have been chosen by the Dragon God Valley and are disciples of the Dragon God Valley. Why would the Southern Divine Palace and the other 3 Divine Palaces be so bold to attack us? You don't seem to have any scruples at all. Lu Ming asked the biggest question in his heart. This question had been bothering Lu Ming for a long time. He and Long Chen were disciples of the Dragon God Valley. The people of the Godly Ruins continent dared to do this to them. Weren't they afraid that the experts of the Dragon God Valley would come and kill them? It would make sense if they attacked secretly, but they were doing it openly now. Lu Ming, you don't know yet, right? A few months ago, the Heavenly Divine Sect sent news that the Dragon God Valley of the Yuanlu continent was destroyed. Ji Hongchen revealed a shocking piece of news. Destroyed? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. The Dragon God Valley of the Yuanlu continent was destroyed. In that case, everything made sense. If the Dragon God Valley was destroyed, the experts of the Godly Ruins continent wouldn't have any scruples. Lu Ming was also speechless. It wasn't easy for him to join a great sect in the Yuanlu continent, but it was destroyed before he could even join the sect. It seemed like the Yuanlu continent was more dangerous than the Godly Ruins continent. A great sect was destroyed just like that. Chapter 1382. Thank you, Miss G. After a while, Lu Ming took a deep breath to calm himself down and thanked Ji Hongchen. Today, she had solved many of Lu Ming's doubts. You're welcome. I'll leave first. I'll come find you when I find the auras of the 10 great clans patriarchs. Ji Hongchen said. Before she left, Ji Hongchen blinked and looked at Lu Ming. Do you really trust me? Aren't you afraid that I'll find an expert to take you down? If that's the case, the 2 origin tokens will be in our hands. Lu Ming smiled and said, Didn't I just say it? I trust you, Miss Ji. Ji Hongchen cracked a smile and flew away. After Ji Hongchen left, Lu Ming changed his appearance again and returned to the outskirts of the mountain where he was supposed to guard. Unexpectedly, Ji Hongchen came to find Lu Ming the next night. Lu Ming, this is the teacup that my father drank from. I believe it'll be useful to you. Ji Hongchen handed a jade teacup to Lu Ming. Lu Ming received it happily and said, Thank you, Miss Ji. Ji Hongchen smiled faintly, but didn't say anything else as he drifted away. Then, the detailed diagram of the Qi Meridian chain formation appeared in Lu Ming's mind. During this period of time, he had already analyzed all the mysteries of the Qi Meridian chain formation and imprinted them in his mind. Then, he took out a jade talisman and extracted the aura of the Ji clan from the teacup. He absorbed it into the jade talisman and started to inscribe inscriptions on it. 3 days later, the first formation-breaking token was successfully refined. As long as one held this token and entered the formation corresponding to the Ji clan patriarch, the formation would not send out an alarm. Unfortunately, the Qi Meridian chain formation required 10 tokens. It would be useless if one was missing. A few days later, Ji Hongchen sent over the aura of the second patriarch. Lu Ming, some of the patriarchs are on good terms with my father, so it's easy for me to get them. However, some of the patriarchs are against my father, so it'll be troublesome. I'll need some time. This was what Ji Hongchen told Lu Ming before he left. Lu Ming could understand. After all, it was the aura of a 4th-layer martial dominator realm expert. It was not easy to acquire the aura of the 10 great clans of the Southern God Palace. Lu Ming could only refine the aura in his hand into a token. Other than guarding the formation, Lu Ming cultivated by himself and strengthened his spirit fire, so he didn't waste any time. Time passed day by day. In the outside world, apart from cultivating, Lu Ming's true body would occasionally appear to attract the attention of others. More and more experts joined the hunt for Lu Ming. In addition to the experts from the other 3 divine palaces, the experts from the other continents also came to the divine ruins. However, Lu Ming was proficient in illusionary aura techniques and could change his aura. Moreover, his battle prowess was formidable. Every time he appeared, he would easily escape after stirring up the situation. Just like that, 4 months passed in the blink of an eye. The 2-year agreement with the Yuanlu Great Sect was getting closer and closer. In the past 4 months, Lu Ming had refined 7 formation-breaking badges. Currently, Ji Hongchen's speed of acquiring aura was getting slower and slower. The time required was getting longer and longer. The remaining people were all enemies of the Ji clan, thus it was extremely difficult to acquire their auras. Night fell. Lu Ming sat cross-legged on a piece of green rock and closed his eyes to cultivate. Between heaven and earth, there were wisps of invisible power of inscription descending from the law of inscription and being absorbed by Lu Ming. In Lu Ming's sea of consciousness, the mental flame gradually grew stronger. Suddenly, Lu Ming opened his eyes and glanced ahead. Here they are again. Lu Ming mumbled. 2 black figures were traveling silently in the formation. Apart from Lu Ming, no one else noticed them. The two figures were not Ji Hongchen, but someone else. 2 months ago, these two figures had secretly come to observe the energy meridian chain formation in the mountain. Behind them, Lu Ming was secretly observing them and finally discovered them. The two people who were secretly observing them were actually experts from the Wang clan, one of the top 10 clans of the Southern Divine Palace. Lu Ming guessed that the Wang clan also wanted to refine the formation-breaking badges. Their goal was simple: to take Long Chen away and keep the Chaos Essence token for themselves. After a while, the two figures left. After the two figures left, another figure came. It was Ji Hongchen. This time, Ji Hongchen brought the 8th aura. Lu Ming, there are two more. Ji Hongchen's face was slightly haggard. It was obvious that she had put in a lot of effort to acquire the auras of the top 10 clans. Lu Ming was quite touched. After Ji Hongchen left, Lu Ming continued to refine the formation-breaking badges. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Ji Hongchen brought the 9th aura. It had been 5 months since Lu Ming entered the Southern Divine Palace. After receiving the auras, Lu Ming began to refine the formation-breaking badges. However, something unexpected took place that night. More than 10 figures were traveling in the darkness, heading deep into the mountain. Is that? Lu Ming was astounded. The dozen or so black shadows were all powerhouses. They were all rulers. One of them even possessed an immeasurable cultivation, a 4th-layer martial dominator realm expert. 4th-layer martial dominator realm cultivators are rare in the entire Southern Divine Palace. Could it be that the patriarch of the Wang clan is here in person? With so many experts from the Wang clan here, could it be that they have already refined 10 formation-breaking badges? Lu Ming made a guess secretly. Inscriptions appeared on his body and he restrained his aura to the extreme. With a sway of his figure, he silently followed behind the dozen figures. As they arrived before the chain chi formation, the strongest expert waved his hand and took out 10 jade badges. As expected, he had refined 10 formation-breaking badges, which was faster than Lu Ming. The 10 formation-breaking medallions emitted a layer of light that enveloped the 10 or so black figures. The 10 or so black figures charged into the chain meridian formation without causing any ripples. Not long after, more than a dozen black shadows rushed into the cave and disappeared. Lu Ming frowned. Now that the plan had changed beyond his expectations, he could only take one step at a time. Not long after, the figures reappeared in the cave, but this time, there was an extra person among them. Long Chen. At one glance, Lu Ming saw that one of the dozen people was Long Chen. Long Chen's face was slightly pale as he was being carried by one of the figures. It was obvious that Long Chen had suffered a lot during this period, but he was still determined. The figures carried Long Chen and swiftly passed through the formation, arriving at the outermost formation. As they were about to pass through the formation and escape. Bang! 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 Several powerful auras suddenly exploded in the air. There were more than 100 of them. Following this, more than 100 figures descended and surrounded the figures. Wang Sheng, you're trying to monopolize the chaotic badges. Do you think we don't know that you've found someone to refine the formation-breaking badges? A white-haired old man snapped coldly. Ha ha ha. The one with the strongest aura among the figures burst out laughing as he unleashed his true force, shattering the black robe around him, revealing his true appearance. It was the patriarch of the Wang clan, Wang Sheng.